My name is Erica Richavan, and as already said, I'm originally from Ghana and now an Irish citizen. I have 3 boys, and we've lived here for nearly 10 years. I arrived here in 2003, and my husband joined me in 2005. Unfortunately, he was diagnosed with cancer in 2006, and he died in 2008 after chemotherapy treatments failed. His diagnosis was a shock, but I can't begin to tell you how emotional we became when he passed away, me and my boys. Naturally, the grief process was a difficult one, and it was too much to bear, which sometimes had a physical impact on my body. And the only place I knew to go when I experienced bodily physical symptoms of the grief was to turn to my GP, because at the time I didn't even know that what I was feeling on my body was due to the grief that I was going through. I remember going to my GP for help, and instead of counseling referral, she actually handed me a pack of antidepressants. And she told me that one of the effects of the drug was that I was going to feel suicidal for the next 10 days before I get better. I mean, that freaked me out. I was so scared, I was so shocked that I was already so down, and yet I was given antidepressants which were going to impact on my physical being or physical well-being for the next 10 days before I could feel any better. And so instead of taking them, I actually just, out of fear, I threw them away. I couldn't bring myself to take them. Obviously, the GP's action actually has such an impact on me, and I thought, oh my God, this is the only place that I know to go, and she can't even help me. She's giving me drugs that will freak me out. So the hopelessness and the despair was unbearable. I remember I was so down, I was so depressed, and I began to have suicidal thoughts anyway, because I couldn't see any future for me. And it was at this point that I thought, something needs to be done about this. I need help. I remember going to work one day. I was doing voluntary work for a CDP, and I couldn't bear the grief anymore. So I remember screaming so hard at the workplace. Thankfully, the people that I was working with were also so friendly. They were my friends. And it was at that point that they decided to look for counseling services for me. Unfortunately, that day in the whole of Letterkenny, in Donegal, that's the place I was at the time, there was no counselor on call, in quotes. No counseling services available at all, either due to the person who was in charge traveling or not at work at that particular time. So the natural next step was that my friends contacted my GP, and she handed me a letter to go to the psychiatric hospital. Now for me, that was the most shock of all, because where I come from, we don't go to psychiatric hospitals so easily. You have to be really, really bad, mentally unstable before you are referred to the psychiatric hospital. And already in my mind, I thought I was going crazy for all the thoughts that was going through my mind and for all the feelings on my body. And so when I got the letter from the GP, she just, in some ways, actually made my feelings, she confirmed my feelings for me by saying that I've gone crazy. And so being in the psychiatric hospital was just another shock for me. As soon as I entered the hall, the mere atmosphere suffocated me. It was the first time ever, and I felt so suffocated. And I wanted to get out immediately, and yet the nurses won't let me go. It took me about 3 hours to see a doctor, and only for 10 minutes consultation. Now, I had to call a friend to get me out of the place, because I knew if I had waited that long there, I probably would have fainted from the way I was feeling. Eventually, I got to speak to a doctor, and the doctor said, okay, all you need is bereavement counseling. And I thought, okay, this is my point all along, I need counseling. Again, it was at that point that the HSC bereavement counseling was given to me, and I thought to myself, why do I have to go to the rock bottom, be given antidepressants, end up in a psychiatric hospital before I'll get any counseling for bereavement in a country that is supposed to be developed. And at my workplace, what I do, I meet people all the time. I mean, it got to even the point that all this while my children were also grieving, and they had no attention at all. They only had Rainbow's program, and I still didn't have counseling for them. I was referred to a friend who knew a counselor who was a Christian counselor, and she was willing to do it free of charge. So, but she lived in Dublin, in Belfast. So we had to travel 2 hours in and 2 hours out to get counseling for my boys and myself. 4 hours trip just to get counseling every time we had an appointment. And I thought, this is not right. And there's you know, some of these issues going on every day. For me, if you think that this is a difficult situation, I was lucky enough to get the counseling services eventually, and I'm here today. But think about the people who cannot express themselves, who, you know, we all just face poverty, discrimination, we face all these issues. We've traveled long to come here. We don't have any family support. We have no one that we can rely on. We just rely on the state. And if the state fails us, it is a real failure. And I pray that the state at this stage would do something about the health issues for women, not just all migrant women, but for all women, because every woman deserves good health services. Thank you very much.